Most of us feel like we have potential, but we don't know how to tap into it. Inside, we feel like we should be doing something different, but we don't know what that is. Well, now it's time to awaken your energy and enlightenment. Find out who you really are and truly discover why you are more powerful than you think. By transforming the perspective of yourself, you will discover the power to recognize the incredible possibilities within you and in your life. Now, bringing you thought leaders from around the country and around the world, here's chiropractor and author, Dr. Fred DiDomenico.
Hey, it's Dr. Fred DiDomenico with You Are More Powerful podcast, and I'm really excited. And the reason we do this is based on my book, You Are More Powerful Than You Think, that introduces the emotionally and spiritual system, six-step system called HEAL, that helps us really connect with our innate divine power, clear of our past, discover, live, and fulfill our soul purpose. So the reason we have this is to bring great leaders around the world and have them tell their story of how they found their purpose, how they're making an impact in the world. Tell their story that, hey, the people that are impacting and changing the world, man, they have their story of pain too. And then be able to get into the consciousness of inspiration that we can all be lifted, we can all celebrate this person's life and vision, and we can all do it together because unity is God. Unity and love is God within us. So I'm so excited to be with you, Jeff. You're a great visionary. You're doing amazing things. You're literally exposing the world to things that are happening in the world that most people don't know about. You're bringing enlightenment, and most importantly, you're a friend. So thank you for being here.
So good to be here. Anytime.
Yeah. So, there's obviously, you're like the docuseries king. You bring in exposure, massive worldwide exposure, millions of people on so many different topics. But before we get into what you're doing, we kind of want to know the man behind the mission. Why don't you tell your story, how you grew up, how you got into this, and let people know who you are.
Well, I was born a poor black child in southern Mississippi.
Nice accent.
Do you remember that line from The Jerk? I'm quoting. So
yeah.
So my dad was a Baptist deacon. My mom died when I was 11, and my dad remarried within months and married a woman who was in the Church of Christ. And the Church of Christ is famous for many things, but they're a fairly small denomination, and at risk of offending anybody who's a member, the Church of Christ believes they're the only ones who are going to heaven. And I remember asking my dad when I was 11 years old, well, Dad, if the Church of Christ is the only ones going to heaven, what happened to Mom? And he said, well, Jeff, let's just see what the Bible says. And basically, with him interpreting it for me, the Bible said Mom went to hell. And so it started a strange spiritual experience it started a number of different experiences at a very early age. And so,
well, this may be a dumb question, but when you heard that, were you challenged by that? Were you just sad? You're 11 years old, or was there something inside you that said it was different? How did you feel at that time?
So because my dad remarried so quickly, I wasn't really allowed to grieve my mom. And some things happened there that I made some decisions as an 11-year-old that I was only able to unwind as a 61-year-old. I built a wall around emotions that survived intact for 50 years.
Wow.
But by the time I was 12 and 13, I had a collection of metaphysical books and books that you would never expect a 12-year-old or 13-year-old to read. And I came home when I was 13 one time, and I had a bookshelf that was, about astral projection and just wacky stuff. And I came home from school, and my dad had thrown all those books away. after he became a Church of Christ preacher, and said, I'm not going to have this demonic stuff in my house. And I never really understood until this last year, why in the world would a 12-year-old be reading books on this? But I was looking for my mother. I had one foot in this world and one foot in another. And so it started a strange spiritual yearning that said there has to be more than this clearly defined. I always say any religion that has a God less loving than me is got a problem with its philosophy.
Right.
And so even at 11 years old, I knew that.
Yeah, brilliance in that simplicity, isn't there?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So man, go ahead.
So that kind of started a stunted spiritual journey in my life, and I'm specifically focusing on that. From a business standpoint, I'm a high school dropout. My sister is a PhD and a Regents professor at a medical school. So my mother's death, I wouldn't say it derailed my life. It kind of put my life on the rail it was supposed to be on. So I was a door-to-door encyclopedia salesman when I was 18, and I was so ignorant, I thought that was a great job. I bought my first Cadillac as a door-to-door encyclopedia salesman.
Well, apparently it was a great job.
For an 18-year-old who didn't know any better, it was okay. So so it was an interesting upbringing. I have 8 patents. I've raised over $130 million in my business career. I've started and launched and failed in, and sometimes succeeded in lots of entrepreneurial ventures. But when I used to own a brokerage firm, and there were 3 of us that worked together, and one guy happened to be in town. He now has an art gallery on 57th and 5th Avenue in New York. But he was a broker, and my buddy, who ended up becoming my pilot, said, "Hey, he said, I want to be a pilot." And Jim Rennert, another stockbroker, said, "I want to be a sculptor." And they go, "What do you want to be, Jeff?" I said, I want to make movies. And now Red is the chief pilot for Spirit Airways. Jim Rennert is in the National Gallery of Art and makes a fortune as a sculptor. And I've been shortlisted for an Academy Award making films.
Wow.
But Red was a high school dropout. Jim was a BYU graduate, but he knew he wasn't a stockbroker. He was a sculptor. I have a sculpture of his that I bought for $6,000 15 years ago that now he has a size that's 6 inches larger that I saw sell at auction for $187,000 of that same sculpture. And so you look at these 3 people, we knew we were not where we were supposed to be. It doesn't matter where you start. It was, this Jim said, you look at me and you see a stockbroker. Inside here is a sculptor.
Right. So there's so many people. I talk to people all the time, and when I tell them, I help people find their soul purpose, and there's so many that say, I don't know what my purpose is. But when you were in that brokerage business, and these 3 guys said, "Hey, I'm a sculptor. You want to make movies. The other guy wants to be a pilot." What's that feel like inside when you're doing something that you're in, what's inside you needs to come out, and it's not what's in your world right now? Do you remember that point?
Yeah, and it's uncomfortable, but the reality is we were exactly where we were supposed to be. People are supposed to find their purpose, but sometimes you have to become aware of it, and you have to wait on your purpose, and then you have to qualify for your purpose. It's where my friend Red, who said, "I want to be a pilot," then that led into years of schooling, of type ratings, of all the things he had to do. And, like I said, now he's chief pilot for Spirit Airways, but he didn't go, my purpose is to be a pilot and then get hired as chief pilot.
Right.
And so then it becomes an outline of doing the work. And you don't have to drive yourself into bankruptcy or lose your family in order to fulfill your purpose. You can do this sequentially and say, okay, I'm moving toward my purpose. And right now I'm moving toward my purpose by being a door-to-door encyclopedia salesman. And so sometimes it takes some patience to be able to qualify to manifest what it is you want to do in this world. And
so what was it that, because you feel like you want to be a movie maker, you feel that, what was that impetus that finally said, I'm making a change? And then of course the journey along that led you to where you are today.
So, this is, and I beat on this a little bit, but in the Bible, there's a phrase, I would that you would prosper even as your soul does prosper. And so the personal growth aspect of this is sometimes you have to grow into the person that can be what you want to do in the world. And so it's like looking at yourself like the Michelangelo's sculpture of David, where he said he chipped away everything that wasn't David out of that block of stone. And so, it may take 20 years of chipping away. It's funny. I run into a lot of millennials, people that are 22 that are teaching, how to be successful life courses. And I look at them, and it's not that I don't listen to what they say, but I'm like, 22, wow, maybe get some, laps around the track before you start, teaching how to run the track. And so, once you clarify what's your purpose, it doesn't mean that you need to start fulfilling your purpose on Tuesday. It means organizing your life in such a way that you become the kind of person that can fulfill this thing that only you can do.
Well, and that is that is wisdom. Right there is pure wisdom of going through a human life, right? A spiritual being is a human being, because, when you have a vision, man, patience can be the hardest thing.
Oh, it's gruesome. I remember being 20 years old in Amarillo, Texas, and I would see these houses that the rich people lived in, and I wanted to go knock on the door and go, okay, how did you get this? Just tell me and I'll do it. It's what, and it's, and you do get some help along the way like that. But, it's easy for somebody to look at you and I think I want to be Red. It's like, okay, well, you might be able to capture his knowledge if you spend a really concentrated 5 to 7 years. If it's not concentrated, you need 10 to 20 years.
Right.
And so the path is to constantly be working on never-ending self-improvement, never-ending effort to be the person that qualifies to fulfill your mission.
Yeah, and there's no question, and I'd like to hear some of your stories. I'm sure everybody would be interested. But, like you said, it's becoming, right? It's always growing, and that growth is in consciousness. It's like if you get stuck, it's your consciousness that has to grow, right? And then the challenges are all outside are relating to that level of consciousness.
And we look for the problem and the solution by nature outside of ourselves. It's like, okay, what is causing this feeling in me? What, who did what to me that is causing me to feel this way? And then sooner or later, you discover that the answer to your problems and your success is inside, not outside.
Exactly. So why don't you share a bit of your story when you started to get into filmmaking and how you evolved to where you are today?
Well, because I knew how to raise money, if you know how to raise money, you can be whatever you want to be. I mean, like if you and I got excited about a software idea and I know how to raise money for it and it needs 10 million and I can go find us 10 million, then suddenly we're software company owners. And so I didn't go to film school. I remember when I told Red and Jim that I wanted to be a filmmaker, they said, how do you make movies? I'm like, I don't know, but I see movies, see if somebody knows. And that's literally where I started. But the key with the skill set that I had developed that allowed me to do that is I knew how to get money. And so, from there, I was able to get in the business that I wanted to be in. But then that evolved beyond that, where the tagline for my company is movies that make movements. And I wanted a deeper meaning behind the things that I did. I took a Kabbalah course 25 years ago, and this is when Saddam Hussein was still in power in Iraq. And in the course, it said, do you think that if Saddam Hussein was toppled, Iraq would be a peaceful country? And the obvious answer, I mean, again, this is 25 years ago, the obvious answer was no. So we end up with the leaders that we deserve. They reflect the culture. And so for me, it's not about fighting against Hillary or Trump. It is to make an impact on the culture that chooses these leaders. And I felt like film was the best way to do that, to get people information in a gentle way, in the kindest way I know, that allows them to experience a change of thought.
Well, there's no question. I mean, you've addressed some very controversial topics. And if you could just name a couple of them and your experience, because I know there's other things that happen, like vaccination, the one you did on vaccination. And, it's such a heated topic politically and emotionally that there's got to be some.
Yeah, and that one, we totally lost the battle in the court of public opinion. Now I don't even speak about the subject. I've silenced myself. We did a great job. We put a lot of information out there, and now, like Google, I can't even load that series on YouTube. It's blocked. Facebook, we were spending $100,000 a month on Facebook, and Facebook won't take an ad on anything related to that topic. Google won't take an ad. They have effectively muted the other side of that argument. And so my partner, Patrick Gentempo, was like, we need to fight harder. And I'm like, no, I'm out. I'm not fighting this fight anymore. Then I'm moving my efforts to give people the rights to choose about vaccines instead of the court of public opinion, into the court itself. And so what I do is donate money to Bobby Kennedy Jr. and his court battles. And I remain steadfast that people have a right to make this decision and to have informed consent. And in court, you have the right to subpoena people. You have the right to perjury if they lie. And here's a place that the facts will eventually come out. And so but that's a perfect example where, I thought put up a valiant effort, and it didn't carry the day. And, we're fighting a multi-billion-dollar industry that has no risk for the participants, no liability worries, and they decimated the people. Joe Mercola, his search traffic went down after Google changed their algorithm in June to block him and anyone like him. His search traffic went down 99.9%.
Oh my God.
And, so, this is when you pick your battles. And when you pick those battles, sometimes you have to switch battlefields. But that's my goal, was always to create a tool for the people in that battle that I could leave behind, that they could take and utilize to help accomplish good. But we did a great series on GMOs that at the time we did it, we looked like we were a little bit of Luddites. Say, how can you, the world is going to starve if we don't do this. And now Monsanto has lost 3 cases in a row in court with hundreds lined up behind him. And the court documents have come out that, yes, Monsanto was spying on people. They were hiring private detectives. They were doing everything they could do to not get the truth out. And, the whole story of GMOs and Roundup and glyphosate is being validated on a daily basis. We, some of the things, we did a series on money because our education system was designed in the early 1900s to create good factory workers. If you look at you went all the way through school, through college, through chiropractic school, and you never had anybody give you any training on, oh, by the way, here's how you handle your money. And so we have, financial illiteracy running rampant in the United States. So we went out and interviewed the world's best experts on money. My own household manager, after sitting in on one interview, after the interview, bought 2. We live in Utah, and she bought 2 rental properties that are cash flow positive in North Carolina. And this was, my household manager, who happened to be in the room when we were interviewing one of our real estate experts. I decided to take a tiny stab into Bitcoin after interviewing some of our Bitcoin investors or experts. And I bought Bitcoin at 3,000. And I think today it's at 10,000. I literally changed my entire financial life from doing this, this series that we just did. I was not going to do another health series, and now we're doing one called Cancer Revealed, just because some events over. Patrick's wanted to do it for 2 years, and I've said no because I have a child who died of cancer, and it's just too close to home. But a number of my friends who I've been filming, and again, I'm doing a documentary that I've got Amy Redford, Robert Redford's daughter, directing, and a friend of mine, her son has cancer. We're filming this process, and I had another friend who's probably the most powerful voice in documentary film says, "Why are you doing this film?" And I had to say, I don't know. I literally didn't know why I was doing it until we finally decided to do Cancer Revealed. And this was me being obedient to my purpose, even when I couldn't find a financial reason for doing that.
Yeah, that's faith.
It's moving forward when you know what you're supposed to be doing, and somebody goes, "Why are you doing this?" And it's okay to say, "I don't know." But inside me, I knew I was being obedient.
Right. And I think that's probably the most powerful inspiration right there, right? I don't think there's anything more powerful than that, following your soul.
If you get the knock and you don't answer, usually pain follows. I've learned that when the universe gives you an assignment, you can take it now, or you can be like Jonah in the belly of the whale. But It's just best to go to Nineveh, to stay on that metaphor.
Yeah, we've all spent time in the belly, that's for sure. And usually it'd be so nice if life was learning from pleasure, wouldn't it? That'd be so.
Oh man, I'd be the smartest guy in the world.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's the truth. You've and just listening to the things that you're doing, I mean, Cancer Revealed, I mean, you're taking on again multi-billion-dollar industry that really runs. I mean, they do more than run healthcare. It's almost like they're running the world, and you take on these projects, and not that they're enemies. You're just really revealing. That's what it is, right? All these revealed films is the name of your company, and the inspiration that drives you just to be able to face that, because you're putting yourself out front and totally vulnerable.
Yeah, and I don't, I'm not against things. It's just not my mentality. I'm for things.
Right.
And so I have a lot of friends that we interview that are real activists, and they literally hate Monsanto, or they hate, and this is what drives them. And, I thank God for them, because they give me, almost a safe place to reside, because they're taking the real front lines. But mine doesn't run from negativity. Mine runs from wanting people to have choices, to have options, to have the truth.
Right.
And then, if they will look at our stuff and say those guys are crazy, then God bless them. It's none of my business. It's what I hate is when people are denied options to make good choices, and whatever the choice that they feel is right for them. So it's, taking on, I'm accidentally taking on the cancer industry, but that's not my purpose. My purpose is to let people know all of the options that they have, and then they can make an informed choice.
Well, and knowing you a little bit, that's exactly the answer I was looking for, and that I knew would come out of you. And the difference is, like you say, you have these activists, and they hate this and they hate that. And, you can't find heaven by resisting hell. And so really what you're doing is out of love.
It's exactly where it comes from. And this has been my last spiritual journey, is remembering who I am. And my therapist that I work with said, "Oh, Jeff, nothing is easier than remembering who you really are. And who I am and who you are is love. And if you see me acting in any way that is not that, I'm acting out of my away from my true character."
Well, and we haven't spent a ton of time together, but we spent some time together, and that is exactly who you are. And just being around people that know you, we have mutual friends. I mean, everybody loves you, because you really do emanate that, and you pour that into your purpose, which is truly admirable.
Thank you for saying that. I hope that that's always true.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful message, and you definitely represent that. And the challenge is, hate can be inspiration. It can give you energy, but to carry that energy in you can also be your nemesis and create disease, right? That constant resistance.
One of my favorite activists, who is a leader and on all of the film series about cancer, has now been diagnosed with cancer.
Right.
And the price that you pay is usually in your body, and I'm assuming it's in your soul and in your spirit. And fortunately, it's just not my impulse. It's not it's just not my assignment to deal with that.
Well, it's not who you are.
No,
that's not your purpose. That's not where you're created to be. And I think, again, just to reemphasize what a powerful message that is, and how you fulfill that and represent yourself, how you represent yourself to the universe and to God every day is through love, because I think that's the highest manifesting power, which would probably attribute to your success. Although it's been a long journey, you can only end up in great places when you come from that emotion and perspective.
But it's true for everyone that's watching, for every person that will ever hear these words and every person that won't, is that at our core, when we came to this earth, we came from love. And when we leave this earth, we return to love. And in the middle, on this purpose, this earth, we're met with a negativity that says, you're not loved, you're not loved, and you're all alone. And it's just a false message. The reality is, we are loved and we're not alone. And you can connect to that source anytime you want.
And to each other.
And to each other.
So I'm really curious, since you mentioned in the beginning, you said you're 11, you didn't really, that message of your mom didn't resonate. And for the next 50 years, so when you were 61, what was your big revelation?
So this may be the outside of the scope of what you want to talk about, but it's the truth. On April 29th of this year, I went and did an MDMA journey that I had avoided like the plague for 8 months, and a friend talked me into doing it. And for anybody watching, this is not legal. It will be legal in 2021. So for the purpose of this conversation, I'm making all this up.
Exactly.
So this is now fiction, but in this fiction story, I went and the way this group works is you take a 125 milligram dose. The drug usually kicks in 45 minutes, and 15 minutes later they ask you if you want the second dose of 75 milligrams, and everybody, thousands of people say yes. And so I took the first dose and I felt nothing but anxiety. I felt nothing but it was awful. I waited an hour, nothing happened. She said, "You want the second dose?" I'm like, hell no. I wish I hadn't taken the first dose. And I started feeling anxiety very early on, and I told her this, and she said, "Well, the drug hadn't had time to kick in yet. I think you brought that in with you." And that morning I'd gotten up, and to shave this part of my mustache, I set my razor at 3.5. For some reason that day I set it at 1 and buzzed off half of my mustache. Then literally I put on my shirt inside out. I was scared like a little rabbit. And so 1.5 hours goes by, nothing. 1 hour and 45 minutes, nothing. 2 hours, nothing. But anxiety and boredom. I'm laying back with a blindfold on, music's playing, 2 hours of nothing. And then at 2 hours and 9 minutes, I was suddenly in the safest place that I was ever in. And the person who's with you doesn't say anything. You say things out loud if you want to, and they write them down. And the first thing I said was the sadness of a little boy. And then I said, sadness so strong, it would destroy the world. The last thing I said, and in my journal now, 7 pages later of things that I said, was sadness so strong it could uproot trees and turn over cars. It was a tornado of sadness, and my dad was happy. And what had happened at 11 years old, I had built a wall against feelings that survived even a chip for 50 years. And that experience allowed me to look at it and to comfortably feel it and to dismantle that wall that in all the therapy through all my life, I would do writing as a therapist would say, well, write about your mom. I knew I had some issue with my mom, but I never made even a chip in that wall. And for that experience, it allowed me to dismantle that wall against feelings and realize that feelings are not going to destroy the world. That's an 11-year-old's thought, that these feelings are so powerful they'll destroy the world. So it was one of the, no, it's not one of, it was the most profound experience of my adult life.
Wow, that's amazing. So what has it been like since then, and how long ago was that?
So that was on April 29th of this year. I since went back and did a second journey, and I think I probably have 3 to 5 of these to do. And again, I'm making this up for but to be able to reintegrate and to understand that I don't have to be frightened of feelings that people would call bad. That this was, and I literally went and imagined sitting with my 11-year-old self in the limousine as we went to my mom's gravesite. And I held him and thanked him for taking care of me for all these years. And I'm glad that finally now, 50 years later, I'm able to process what was just not available for me to process as an 11-year-old.
Wow, that is an amazing story. And, it's, of course, the hypothetical vehicle doesn't really matter, but the journey to release, forgive, come alongside your greatest fear, and to be able to come alongside it and have gratitude for it, and to be able to release the energy is truly another testament of your consciousness.
Yeah, this was, and I also have a therapist that I work with on a weekly basis, and so then we followed up that she was not a part of this this journey, but then all the learnings that I took from that, I'm making sure that I integrate, and amazing that it would have been great for me to learn this at 40, but this is what it took for me. So maybe I'm a slow learner.
So how do you think, have you noticed any way that going through that process and letting go of that has affected how you feel about your purpose and the things you're going to, obviously who you are, it's probably been dramatic.
Yeah, this is a continuing evolution that, where one of the things that I wrote down was everybody I love dies. And that was a belief that I had as a child. And that's affected, all of my relationships. And it turns out, I thought about it, everybody I don't love dies as well. So
right. Isn't that fascinating?
But, as an 11-year-old kid, you find yourself at cause for everything. And so this just really helped me to, again, on the purpose on one side, but, the Gandhi quote of be the change you want to see in the world. If you really want to make great change, it starts with great change inside.
Yes. Well, that is so amazing and such a great story. And it is a conscious evolution, right? Because every spiritual being seeks consciousness of ourself, and hopefully we have the desire to do that, and hopefully to achieve that in this lifetime. We may or may not. That would just be attaining pure consciousness, like Christ, right? So hey, we just do our best. So what's your vision for the future as you see? I mean, you just went through this dramatic growth, and I'm sure that will continue. That will just open more doors for even more dramatic growth. What's your vision for the future, for your life, for yourself?
So for me, I just work on staying in flow, and I know I'm in flow when I'm meeting the right people effortlessly, when things are coming into my life, and when I have something like I did not want to do Cancer Revealed. I've been resisting it for 2 years. And the time is right. There's people who need this, that and events of people that I love and care about are suddenly affected by this, that it became so clear. And so I think my greatest joy is in not having a vision that I'm imposing on the world, but it is to being open to what I'm supposed to do and then doing it with wholehearted alacrity. It is bringing all of my experience and contacts and relationships to bear only when I know that I'm doing something I'm called to do. And it pretty much doesn't matter what.
Well, once again, there's truly a higher consciousness, because your vision of the future is to be present now.
Yeah, man, so well said. I wish I could have thought it through that.
Presence, man, because there is no future. We just have now, right?
And I have lived my whole life in the future, and I've spent some of the most frustrating years trying to impose my will on the future, and I'm literally going the other way and finding that I'm succeeding more than I could have ever imagined by trying less, by listening more, and doing what I'm supposed to do.
Isn't that amazing? God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. We hear that one our whole life, right? But listening with your heart, though, right? It's that 18-inch journey. It's listening with your heart and your spirit. And
when it's right, you know it.
Yeah. Well, again, it's brilliance and consciousness, and presence is all we have. So we make this moment great. You've made these moments great. I truly appreciate your brilliance, really true brilliance. And we're all brilliant in our own way. Yet the way you speak from your heart and your consciousness, I know, was through a lot of experience. Right, so we try and push the boulder uphill, man, and then we just get tired.
That's exactly right. Because I can tell you failure stories. Matter of fact, some friends and I are going to make a film on failure, where I've got some fabulously successful friends, and we were talking about who had the biggest business collapse, and we decided we just want to film this because we want people to know the truth, that, hey, you look at some of these guys that are, multi or centimillionaires, and everybody thinks, man, it must be great to you, and they don't know this is the journey. This is what we're all going through, and all of our experiences that we're so grateful for now, we're riddled with pain. The journey is the thing.
Yes, it is. Life is a process, right? And that's the enjoyment, is the journey.
Yeah.
And doing it with presence is amazing. So any final words that you'd like to throw in there, just to kind of seed in the minds of people, in the hearts of people?
I only have wisdom in context. I don't have, it's funny. I'm writing a book right now, and I've hired a company that's helped me write it, but I'm cringing as I do it. The things I believed 25 years ago, I no longer believe. It's rough when you start writing down your thoughts. So all I can say is take everything I say with a grain of salt, because if I live another 25 years, I'll probably change my mind by then. I do know that this is for me a joyful time, and I appreciate you sharing it with me.
Well, yeah, and I really appreciate you taking your time. And there's a quote that we teach, is we think it actually comes from A Course in Miracles. To expand on what you said, we think we're here to change the world, and we're really here to change our mind.
And that is so great. Matter of fact, let's make that my closing thought. Because there
you go. You can have that one from A Course in Miracles. Hey, well, thank you so much. I feel like I've grown just by talking to you, and I know the people that are listening to this. There's so many gems. I would listen to this podcast at least 3 times so you can pick up not just the words, but the meaning behind the words. And then we can all be different because you shared with us. So thank you so much.
Hey, thank you.
You're listening to the You Are More Powerful podcast, brought to you by youaremorepowerful.com and the book, You Are More Powerful Than You Think by Dr. Fred DiDomenico. Join us again next time for more discoveries right here on the You Are More Powerful podcast.